In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. We do have an ongoing, very major lake effect event happening across the Great Lakes. Highways across Pennsylvania and New York have a terrible situation. Some cars and trucks stuck on the road. Thoughts and prayers out to them, as this is only going to get worse. I think there was only 1 or 2 feet of snow on the ground as that kind of started to unfold, with multiple feet still expected. Hopefully everybody can get out of there, because well, the cars might end up buried over time. So it's becoming a pretty bad situation out there. And, it's not just in Pennsylvania and New York. We have heavy snowfall expected further north than there in New York, like near the Tug Hill, areas in Ohio, Michigan, as well, expecting heavy snowfall from these lake effect bands, as we have very warm waters and extremely cold air moving over them. Now, we're going to be talking about more cold air, more snowfall over the course of this video. So let's just dive into it. We can tell that we are fully engulfed in this colder in the east pattern, as you can see, moving in. And we have this warmer, milder air that we've been expecting for weeks moving into the southwest here. Something along these lines is what we are seeing currently, and we don't really expect this to let up for multiple days. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happens by tomorrow on Sunday, December 1st, very fittingly, and things get even worse. This ridge continues to move northward up the west coast here, as you can see, even reaching Canada with that jet stream for the most part. And what that does is it equally causes this cold to the east to dive down even further south. So expect even colder temperatures for tomorrow on Sunday. Snow showers around for the Appalachian Mountain Range here, areas in the northern plains like the Dakotas in particular, and continued lake effect snowfall with very dry conditions throughout the west. Nothing to even note there. As we keep going towards Monday, it's a lot of the same. Maybe even colder than Sunday will be, or at least equal, as this ridge continues to push northward up well into Canada now, diving southward, and we see this really just taking over the entire east as far as those cold temperatures. Really dramatic scene unfolding out there in the east. We do see areas across the Midwest now, the Great Lakes, of course, and even some of the Northeast seeing some snowfall showers. Canada, it's all around. For South Central Canada and Eastern Canada, snow showers are abundant. As we keep going towards Tuesday, we're still rather cold. This ridge comes knocking on the door, though, as it's now starting to kind of flex eastward here, as you can see, into the central states. And this causes the trough to now be centered over the immediate eastern states, as it's still around for this East Coast area, but the Midwest and the plains are warming. Maybe even the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley have warmed slightly, although it's still very cold out there by Tuesday the 3rd. We not only have these lake effect snow bands still ongoing by Tuesday, but we also have some snowfall moving in with a low pressure system here from Canada that could bring what I've been calling synoptic snowfall to the Great Lakes. As you can see, it's a little further north this time around, near the UP of Michigan. Most of this impacting Canada, but also portions of the UP and lower peninsula there of Michigan. As we keep going towards Thursday here, we see that this storm moves up into eastern Canada. We actually get another round of cold air moving in by this Thursday the 5th time frame, and some more snowfall for the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Now, it is to the south and east of this low, so we're a little warmer on this side of things, and we can see some rainfall trying to mix in. I would imagine that the higher elevation areas see snowfall, whereas kind of like the lower elevations see rainfall, would be my imagination of how this one unfolds. Let's take a look at what progresses as we move towards Friday. And we see this trough still kind of battling some of this warmer air that is now located over the south central and some of the southeastern states. So there's a little bit of a battle between the two air masses here. Still rather cold, especially if you're north of this little zigzag that I drew. And if you're south of there, it is warming slightly, probably a lot closer to normal as far as temperatures are concerned. For Saturday the 7th, we see another synoptic snowstorm move through. And again, all this means is it's an actual low pressure system causing the snowfall, whereas lake effect snowfall is not caused by low pressure like that. It's just the cold air moving over the warm water causing instability. This is a low pressure system bringing snowfall to the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast here. And we see this ridge continuing for the west there. Something like this is what we're seeing. As we move towards Sunday, we see that this becomes a little bit of a coastal system over time. This is Sunday morning at about 4 a.m., 992 offshore of New England, and we do see some snow showers, and maybe even for coastal Maine, some heavier, more persistent snowfall. As we keep going towards Sunday afternoon, that moves well up into Canada. We see another system moving through the upper Midwest and Great Lakes again, bringing a few inches of snowfall. And then we get our first little lull in the cold, where it's kind of moving west of this strong low that's developing over the Midwest here. We get a bit of a warm front here to the east. Still rather cold up here, but if you're south of this warm front, you have warmed a little bit. We could even see severe weather here to the south of this low. Wouldn't be surprised by that. So we'll be watching for that. Snowfall to the north and west of this low. Very interesting situation. So the plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and the very far northern Ohio Valley needs to be on the lookout for potential snowfall if we see a storm like this develop as we approach the 10th time frame. I'm sure it'll look a little different though, so there's some time for things to change. Interestingly, on this particular model run, we end up with a little bit of an ice storm situation for the Northeast as this cold is about to move back in around the 11th time frame. So perhaps some icy conditions, thunderstorms and showers here for the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, just on the brink of this cold air moving back in, as you can see, for the Thursday, December 12th time frame. I've noticed a little trend here. You guys might not have noticed it, or you may have, but Thursdays, this has no scientific backing, by the way, or meaning, but Thursdays seem to be the beginning days of a lot of these cooldowns so far this fall. I don't know why it is, but that always seems to be a benchmark date here. We actually not only see the cold air move back in, but the lake effect starts to get going again for Thursday on December 12th. And probably the lakes have cooled quite a bit, but they still have some juice left in the tank, obviously. We continue to be cold from Thursday through Friday and even into Saturday before warming once again on Sunday. And this is an interesting crossroads. We tend to end these model runs at very strong points that could really turn into anything, but we actually see quite a bit of cold pour into the west for this 16th time frame. A little bit of warmth still building for the southwest, so this may end up expanding for a lot of the west, or this cold might win out. The big kicker is that if this cold continues to move into the west, we will continue to see warmth in the east. But if this warmth pushes back northward again for the west, we will likely see this cold move into the east, and we'll get another cold in the east pattern. Regardless, we start to get a lot more rainfall here for the east around this 15th time frame, and a lot of snowfall for Canada and some of the upper Midwest. This is 384 hours out, and I'm sure it'll look a lot different by the time we're getting there, but these models starting to flirt with some warming up in the east over time, which shouldn't be surprising. This is 2 weeks out, and we're finally getting warmth. 2 weeks of straight cold, and honestly 3 if we kind of include how this past week has for the most part gone. That is a long-term cool down for one half of the nation to see, and it makes sense for the West to kind of get their turn after. When we look at the European model, we get a lot of agreement, obviously. I'm going to move us past, where we start to get some disagreement maybe. We're still in agreement through the 5-day period here. We get those clippers moving through the Midwest and Great Lakes there, as you can see. We get this brief warm-up around the 10th, followed by a little bit less of a snowstorm and much more of a rainstorm, followed by some colder air. And on this model, we actually still, by the 15th, have warm out west, so a positive PNA, and cold air is on its way back in. And I'm not too surprised that this model shows this, because this European model has been much more bullish about the cold. And really, it's the model that originally saw the cold and snowy pattern in the first place that we are now in. So the European model had a bad summer and fall with the hurricanes and everything, but it has rebounded a little bit here in the late fall into early winter, and it's had some accurate calls when the GFS model really gets an F. So maybe we're moving back into the European model, returning to being king like it typically is, or maybe we're going to be going back and forth with these models. Regardless, I plan on continuing to bring this format showing both. I think that's the best way to go. The total precipitation, we are seeing a vast increase across these red areas here in the east. A little bit more in the northwest, but really below average for most everywhere else in the nation. So let's take a look at it. Below average for most of the west here. Above average for a lot of the northern plains, deep south, and up through the Ohio Valley and Northeast and Great Lakes. We see kind of an odd anvil type shape here with the above average precipitation, but the Ohio Valley in particular and the Great Lakes doing really, really tremendous here, as well as coastal Texas and Louisiana. So some areas starting to rebound from their very dry patterns we've been in. Total snowfall out west, a little better for the northern Rockies and northern Cascades. The Midwest in through the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic and Northeast does incredible, especially the Great Lakes, obviously, where we still expect feet of snowfall. For Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, this is nowhere near done, and it's going to be one of the bigger lake effect events in recent memory. So definitely buckle up. Obviously a very dangerous situation and unfortunate in many regards, but absolutely crazy to see and witness, honestly, the amount of snowfall expected there after they already have feet on the ground for many areas. This is just unfolding to be one of the more major lake effect events I can remember. The European model in full agreement, obviously. A little further north with this snowfall. Again, the GFS model tends to be a little too far southeast, so maybe we're seeing a little bit more accuracy here on the European model. But the Great Lakes, really no change from the GFS model. Feet of snowfall expected there, according to this model as well. When we look at the temperature patterns, colder in the east, continues to be for the 3rd, 4th, 5th. We get this brief warm-up around the 5th time frame, but look at this. Another cool down moves in for that afternoon. Maybe 12 hours of warmth before we get more cold air moving into the east. This lasts through the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Brief warm-up there, and then the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. You get the point. We're still colder, and then we get this warm-up around the 16th here on the GFS model. As you can see, surging up the east, but I feel like a lot of this cold is on its way to the east once again. It just seems tilted that way, and this is pretty mild with the cold along the west coast, so maybe a good point to start building that positive PNA back up. It would be crazy if this continues to be cold after the 15th time frame too, because this would just be the longest term cool pattern I've seen in my entire career, basically. Let's look at the European model. Initial cool down here. Brief intermission. I'm talking, this is the cold moving out. This is 7 p.m. on Wednesday the 4th. And the next cooldown is here by 7 p.m. Thursday the 5th. So max 24 hours is what we're seeing on these models. And then this one lasts days. Brief warm-up before we see more cold air moving in. The interesting thing here on the European models, we continue to have this warmth out west. We get a little bit milder across the central and eastern states, but there is more cold air moving in. I think overall the European model looks more favorable for continued cold in the east than the GFS model does, even though this frame looks quite dire. But I think overall the European model is more on board with continued cold just based on the warm in the west for the most part. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We're going to continue to track everything with you guys, of course, as we just monitor this cold air situation, the Great Lakes, and potential snowstorms that we may see throughout this very, very cold pattern. Be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.